Olivia had never felt more humiliated in her entire life. 23 years old, and here she was being driven to the middle of nowhere like a rebellious teenager being sent to timeout. Her mother sat in the passenger seat, silent and disappointed as always. Her father gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, his jaw clenched in that way that meant he was done talking. The city skyline had disappeared hours ago. Now there was nothing but endless fields, old barns, and the occasional gas station that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. Olivia stared out the window, her phone clutched in her hand, watching the signal bars drop from 4 to 3, then to 2, and finally to nothing at all. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered under her breath. Her father's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. What was that? Nothing. Olivia slumped deeper into the back seat, pulling her designer jacket tighter around herself even though the car heater was on full blast. This was all because she'd dropped out of university. Again. First, it was the business program her father had insisted she enroll in. She'd lasted 1 semester before switching to marketing. Then marketing became graphic design. Then graphic design became nothing at all because she'd stopped showing up to classes entirely. The final straw had been when her parents discovered she'd blown through her entire semester's tuition money on concert tickets, clothes, and weekend trips with friends who'd already moved on to their own successful lives. "You need to learn the value of hard work," her father had said, during what Olivia now called the big lecture. "You need to understand that money doesn't grow on trees and that life isn't just one big party." Her mother had added, voice trembling with disappointment, "We've given you every opportunity, every advantage, and you've thrown it all away. We don't know what else to do with you." So they'd come up with this brilliant punishment.
1 full year living with Uncle Raymond in the countryside.
No credit cards, no allowance, no running back home when things got difficult. Her father had made that last part crystal clear. If she tried to come back early, the door would be locked. The gravel crunched under the tires as they turned onto a long, winding driveway. Olivia sat up, looking at the property with growing horror. The farmhouse was small and old, with peeling white paint and a front porch that sagged slightly to one side. There were chickens pecking around in the yard. Actual chickens. A rusted truck that looked older than Olivia herself sat parked near a weathered barn. "This cannot be real," Olivia said, her voice rising. "You're actually going to leave me here? In this place?" Her mother turned around, and for a moment Olivia thought she saw hesitation in her eyes. But then her mother's expression hardened. "It's only a year, Olivia, and maybe it's exactly what you need." The front door of the farmhouse opened, and a man stepped out onto the porch. Uncle Raymond looked nothing like her father, even though they were brothers. Where her dad wore expensive suits and kept his hair perfectly styled, Uncle Raymond wore faded jeans, a flannel shirt, and boots covered in mud. His face was tanned and lined from years in the sun, his hands rough and calloused. He had to be in his early 60s now, but he moved with the steady strength of someone who'd spent his entire life doing physical labor. Well, Uncle Raymond called out, his voice carrying across the yard. "There's my city girl." Olivia got out of the car slowly, her white sneakers immediately collecting dust from the driveway. The air smelled different out here, earthy, like grass and animals and something else she couldn't quite identify. It was so quiet. No traffic sounds, no sirens, no music bleeding from neighboring apartments. Just whined and the distant sound of those stupid chickens. Her father was already pulling her suitcases from the trunk. 3 large designer bags that suddenly looked ridiculous in this setting. Uncle Raymond walked over, eyeing the luggage with amusement. "You planning to stay a year or open a boutique?" he asked, the corner of his mouth twitching. Olivia's father didn't smile. He shook his brother's hand firmly. "Raymond, thank you for doing this. Family helps family," Uncle Raymond replied simply, "even when that family needs a wake-up call." Olivia felt her cheeks burn. Great. So Uncle Raymond was on their side too. Of course he was. Her mother gave her a stiff hug, whispering, "Please, Olivia, just try, for once in your life. Just try." Then they were back in the car driving away, leaving her standing in the dusty driveway with a stranger who happened to share her last name. Uncle Raymond picked up 2 of her suitcases like they weighed nothing. "Come on, I'll show you your room. We've got about an hour of daylight left and there's work to be done before dinner." "Work?" Olivia grabbed her remaining suitcase, struggling with its weight. "Today? I just got here." "Cows don't care if you just arrived. Uncle Raymond said over his shoulder. They still need feeding. Chickens still need their coop locked up for the night. Work doesn't take days off on a farm. The inside of the farmhouse was just as outdated as the outside. The furniture looked ancient. The TV was one of those old boxy ones. And the kitchen had appliances that belonged in a museum. Her room was small, with a single bed covered in a handmade quilt, a wooden dresser with a mirror that had spots of tarnish, and a window that looked out over fields that seemed to stretch on forever. Bathrooms down the hall, Uncle Raymond said. We've got hot water, but it runs out if you take long showers. Dinner's at 6:30. No exceptions. And here. He pulled a pair of work boots from behind the door. You'll need these. Those fancy sneakers won't last a day. Olivia stared at the boots like they were instruments of torture. You can't be serious. Dead serious. Uncle Raymond's expression softened slightly. Look, Olivia, I know you don't want to be here. Your dad explained the situation, but this is my home, and while you're under my roof, you follow my rules. I get up at 5. I work until sundown. I do it because it needs doing, not because anyone's forcing me. You're going to learn to do the same. And if I refuse, Uncle Raymond shrugged, then you can call your parents and see if they'll come get you. But something tells me you already know what they'll say. He left her alone in the room, his heavy footsteps echoing down the hallway. Olivia sat on the bed, which squeaked under her weight, and looked around at her prison for the next 12 months. Through the window, the sun was setting over those endless fields, painting the sky in oranges and purples that she might have found beautiful if she wasn't so miserable. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, hope flaring briefly. But it was just a notification that she'd lost connection to her cellular network. No signal, no internet. No contact with the outside world except for the ancient landline she'd spotted in the hallway. Olivia fell back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. 1 year, 365 days. How was she possibly going to survive this? From somewhere outside, she heard Uncle Raymond calling her name. Time for that work he'd mentioned. With a groan, Olivia pulled on the work boots. They were stiff and uncomfortable, nothing like her comfortable sneakers. She caught sight of herself in the spotted mirror. Designer jacket, perfectly styled hair, expensive jewelry, and muddy work boots. She looked ridiculous. This was going to be the worst year of her life. Of that, Olivia was absolutely certain. She had no idea how wrong she was. 3 months had crawled by like 3 years. Olivia's hands, once perfectly manicured, were now calloused and rough. Her designer clothes sat untouched in the closet, replaced by practical jeans and t-shirts that could handle dirt and sweat. She'd learned to wake up at 5 in the morning without an alarm, her body adapting to the farm's rhythm whether she liked it or not. But something strange had started happening. The work that once felt like pure torture had become almost meditative. There was something satisfying about collecting eggs from the chicken coop, about seeing the vegetables she'd planted actually grow, about falling into bed exhausted and sleeping deeply without the anxiety that used to keep her up at night in the city. Uncle Raymond wasn't much of a talker, but he was patient. When she messed up, which was often at first, he'd simply show her again how to do it right. No lectures. No disappointment. Just quiet guidance. It was different from anything she'd experienced with her parents. One Saturday morning, Olivia was helping clean out the barn when she noticed something odd. A black car, expensive looking, pulled up the long driveway. Not the kind of car you'd expect to see on a dirt farm road. 2 men in suits got out, looking completely out of place among the chickens and hay bales. Uncle Raymond was fixing a fence post nearby. He glanced up at the car, and Olivia could have sworn she saw him roll his eyes. Stay here, he told her, wiping his hands on his jeans. This won't take long. But Olivia was curious. She edged closer to the barn door, close enough to hear the conversation. Mr. Chen, one of the suited men said, extending his hand. I'm David Park from Horizon Development Corporation. We spoke on the phone last year. I remember, Uncle Raymond said, not taking the offered hand. And I remember telling you I wasn't interested. The other man stepped forward, pulling out a folder. We understand, but we wanted to make you an updated offer. The market has changed significantly. We're prepared to offer $8 million for your property. That's well above market value for farmland in this area. Olivia's jaw dropped. $8 million? For this place? She must have heard wrong. Uncle Raymond crossed his arms. And I'm prepared to tell you the same thing I told you last year, and the year before that, and every other time someone like you shows up. The land's not for sale. Mr. Chen, please be reasonable, the first man said, his friendly tone slipping slightly. You're running a small farm operation here. Do you have any idea what you could do with $8 million? You could retire, travel, live in luxury for the rest of your life. I am retired, Uncle Raymond replied calmly, and I'm living exactly how I want to live. The second man tried a different approach. Think about your family. You could leave them a substantial inheritance. Your niece is here, isn't she? Young woman like that. She could use that money for college, for starting a business. Olivia felt a chill run through her. They knew about her. They'd done their research. Uncle Raymond's voice went cold. My family is none of your concern. Now get off my property before I call the sheriff, and tell whoever sent you that the answer will always be no. I don't care if you come back offering $50 million. This land isn't for sale. The men exchanged glances, clearly frustrated. They got back in their car and drove away, leaving a dust cloud in their wake. Olivia stood frozen in the barn doorway. Uncle Raymond turned and saw her there. How much of that did you hear? He asked. All of it, she admitted. They offered you $8 million. Uncle Raymond, that's an insane amount of money. He walked past her into the barn, picking up the pitchfork he'd been using earlier. It's not about the money, kid. How can it not be about the money? You're living in a house that's falling apart. You drive a truck that's older than I am. You work yourself to the bone every single day. You could sell this place and live like a king. Uncle Raymond paused, looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You think I'm poor, don't you? I mean. Olivia stumbled over her words. You live simply. Simple isn't the same as poor. He leaned against the pitchfork, studying her face. How many acres do you think this farm is? Olivia shrugged. I don't know. 50? 100? 840, he said. I own 840 acres of land. Do you know what else is on this land besides crops and animals? She shook her head, genuinely confused now. Come on, he said. I'll show you something. They walked past the fields she'd become familiar with, past the north pasture where the cows grazed, all the way to the far edge of the property where Olivia had never been. There was a small office. Building there, just one story that she'd assumed was some kind of storage facility. Uncle Raymond pulled out a key and unlocked it. Inside, it was completely different from the farmhouse. Modern computer equipment, filing cabinets, a large desk covered in papers and maps. It looked like a real office, the kind her father would have. Sit down, Uncle Raymond said, gesturing to a chair. He opened one of the filing cabinets and pulled out a folder thick with documents. He spread them across the desk. Land deeds. Dozens of them, each one showing properties in the county, all under the same name. Raymond Chen. After your grandfather died, he left the family farm to me and the business to your father, Uncle Raymond explained. Your dad thought he got the better deal, and for a while, maybe he did, but I had something different in mind. He pulled out more papers, geological surveys, analysis reports, legal documents that Olivia couldn't fully understand but that had a lot of zeros on them. I worked as a geological surveyor when I was younger, he continued. Spent 20 years traveling, studying land, understanding what makes property valuable. When I came back here to take over the farm, I started buying up land quietly. Parcels here and there, places people thought were worthless. Why? Olivia asked, her mind reeling. Because I knew something they didn't. There's limestone deposits under most of this county, valuable ones. There's also prime development potential along the highway corridor. And water rights that are going to be worth their weight in gold as the state keeps growing. He tapped one of the maps. I've been approached by developers at least 20 times in the past 10 years, each offer bigger than the last. That $8 million? That's nothing compared to what this land is actually worth. Olivia stared at the documents spread before her. Then why do you live like you don't have any money? Uncle Raymond sat down in his desk chair, suddenly looking tired. Because I watched what money did to people. I saw it change your father, make him obsessed with status and appearances. I saw it ruin friendships, break up families, When I made my first real money from selling one small parcel, I had a choice. I could chase after more, always wanting bigger and better, or I could decide what was enough. He gestured around the office. I manage my investments from here. I have enough money to live comfortably for 10 lifetimes, but I choose to live on this farm, working with my hands because it keeps me grounded. It reminds me every single day what actually matters. Does my dad know? Olivia asked quietly. He knows I own land. He doesn't know how much or what it's worth. Nobody does really, except my lawyer and my accountant. He looked at her directly, and now you. The weight of that statement settled over her. Why are you telling me this? Uncle Raymond stood up, gathering the papers back into the folder. Because you've been here 3 months and I've watched you change. You came here angry, entitled, thinking the world owed you something. But you've started to understand what it means to work for something, to build something with your own hands. I wanted you to know that refusing that money today wasn't because I'm some stubborn old fool who doesn't understand business. Then, why did you refuse it? He locked the filing cabinet and headed toward the door. Because some things are worth more than money. This land has been in our family for 3 generations. It's more than just property. It's legacy, it's responsibility, and it's teaching you something that all your parents' money never could. They walked back toward the farmhouse in silence. Olivia's mind was spinning. Everything she'd assumed about Uncle Raymond, about this place, about why she'd been sent here, suddenly looked different. That night, lying in her small room, Olivia couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about those documents, about the offers Uncle Raymond had turned down, about the choice he'd made to live simply despite being able to afford anything he wanted. For the first time since arriving, she wondered if maybe her parents had accidentally given her something valuable after all. Not a punishment, but a chance to learn from someone who actually understood what wealth really meant. Outside her window, the fields stretched endlessly under the starlight. 840 acres, millions of dollars lying beneath dirt and crops. And one old man who chose pitchforks over penthouses, Olivia finally understood. She was starting to see what her uncle saw, and that changed everything. After learning about Uncle Raymond's hidden wealth, Olivia couldn't look at the farm the same way. Every morning when she woke up and saw him already outside, working in clothes that had been patched multiple times, she wondered why. Why choose this life when you could have anything? She started paying closer attention to everything he did. The way he inspected the soil before planting, running it through his fingers like he was reading a book. How he talked to the local farmers at the weekend market, treating everyone with the same respect regardless of whether they owned 10 acres or 1,000. The careful notes he kept about rainfall, crop rotation, and seasonal patterns. One afternoon, about a week after the revelation in the office, Uncle Raymond found Olivia sitting on the porch steps, scrolling through an old farming magazine she'd found in the house. Getting interested in agriculture? He asked, sitting down beside her with a grunt. Maybe, she admitted. I was reading about sustainable farming practices. There's this whole section about soil health and how most commercial farming is actually destroying the land for short-term profit. Uncle Raymond nodded slowly. That's exactly right. You want to see something? He led her to the southern section of the property, an area she'd only passed by a few times. Unlike the other fields with neat rows of crops, this section looked almost wild. Plants of different heights grew in seemingly random patterns. There were flowers mixed in with vegetables, tall grasses bordering the edges. This looks messy, Olivia said, then immediately regretted it when she saw his expression. But Uncle Raymond just laughed. That's what everyone says. But look closer. He knelt down, pointing out different plants. See these flowers? They attract beneficial insects that eat the pests that would normally destroy the crops. These tall grasses? They provide habitat for birds that control the rodent population. And these plants here, they fix nitrogen in the soil naturally, so I don't need chemical fertilizers. Olivia crouched beside him, genuinely fascinated. So it's not messy, it's designed. Everything in nature has a purpose, he said. The problem is we got too smart for our own good. We decided we could do better than nature with our chemicals and our machines and our monocultures, and for a while it looked like we were right. Production went up. But then the soil started dying. The water got polluted. The bees started disappearing. Ugh. He stood up, surveying the field with obvious pride. This section produces less per acre than my conventional fields, but it produces it year after year without destroying the land. In 50 years, this soil will be richer than it is today. The conventional fields, they'll be dead unless someone puts in the work to heal them. Is that what you're doing? Olivia asked. Healing the land? Trying to, he said. When I took over this farm, your grandfather had been using conventional methods for decades. It's taken me 15 years just to get some sections back to health. It's slow work, but it's worth it. Over the next few weeks, Uncle Raymond began teaching Olivia in earnest. Not just how to do the daily chores, but why they mattered. He showed her his record books going back decades, explaining how he tracked every variable, learned from every failure, celebrated every small success. Farming isn't just about putting seeds in the ground and hoping for the best, he explained one evening as they sat in his office. It's about understanding systems, weather patterns, soil composition, market demands, ecological balance. It's science and art and business all mixed together. He pulled out a map of the entire property. See these areas I've marked in green? That's land I'm actively farming. The blue areas are pasture for the livestock. But look at all this red. More than half the map was marked in red. Hundreds of acres. What's the red? Olivia asked. Conservation land. Wetlands, forest, natural prairie. I've put it all under conservation easements. That means no one can ever develop it, even after I'm gone. It'll stay wild forever. But that's land you could sell, Olivia said. That's millions of dollars you're just protecting. I'm not just doing anything, Uncle Raymond said firmly. That land provides clean water for the whole county. It's habitat for dozens of species, some of them endangered. It prevents flooding. It stores carbon. The value it provides to the ecosystem and the community is worth more than any dollar amount a developer could offer. Olivia sat back in her chair, processing this. My dad would never understand that. Your dad measures success differently than I do, Uncle Raymond said diplomatically. He's not wrong to want financial success, but he forgot somewhere along the way that money is supposed to be a tool, not a goal. You make money so you can do something meaningful with it, not just to have more money. That night, Olivia did something she hadn't done since arriving at the farm. She called her parents, not because she wanted to come home, but because she actually wanted to talk to them. Her mother answered on the third ring. Olivia, is everything okay? Yeah, Mom, everything's fine. I wanted to talk. There was surprise in her mother's voice. How are things going with Uncle Raymond? Good, actually. Really good. Olivia paused, choosing her words carefully. I've been learning a lot. About farming, about land management, about what actually matters. Her father got on the other line. You're not calling to ask to come home early, are you? Because the answer is still no. I'm not, Olivia said, and realized she meant it. I'm calling because I wanted to tell you something. I think I found what I want to do with my life. Silence on the other end. Then her father spoke, skeptical. And what's that? I want to study agricultural business and sustainable farming. I want to learn how to manage land in a way that's both profitable and environmentally responsible. Uncle Raymond has been teaching me, and I think this is actually something I could be good at. More silence. Olivia could picture her parents' faces, probably exchanging confused glances. Her mother spoke first. Olivia, honey, that's wonderful that you're finding purpose out there, but you don't have to become a farmer. When you come home, we can find you a position at your father's company. I don't want a position at Dad's company, Olivia interrupted gently. I never wanted that. That's part of why I kept failing at everything. I was trying to fit into a life that wasn't mine. So you want to be a farmer? Her father's voice was heavy with disappointment. We sent you there to learn responsibility, not to throw your life away on some romantic notion about country living. Olivia felt the old anger rising, but pushed it down. You sent me here because you didn't know what else to do with me. And you know what? It worked. Just not the way you thought it would. I'm not asking for your permission or your approval. I'm just telling you that for the first time in my life I actually care about something. I'm actually excited to learn. After she hung up, Olivia found Uncle Raymond on the porch drinking his evening coffee. They didn't take it well, did they? He asked. How'd you know I called them? Heard you on the phone. Sound carries out here. He gestured for her to sit. Your parents want what's best for you. They just have a narrow definition of what best looks like. Did you and my dad ever get along? Olivia asked. Uncle Raymond thought about it. When we were kids, yeah. But after our father died and we had to decide what to do with the inheritance, that's when things changed. He thought I was crazy for wanting the farm. Said I was wasting my potential. Maybe he was right. I could have made more money doing something else. But you would have been miserable, Olivia said. Exactly. He smiled at her. You're starting to get it, kid. Success isn't about impressing other people or having the biggest bank account. It's about looking at your life and feeling satisfied with how you've spent your time on this earth. Olivia looked out at the fields, now familiar and somehow beautiful in the fading light. 6 months ago, this place had felt like a prison. Now it felt like the first place she'd ever truly belonged. Uncle Raymond, she said slowly, would you teach me? Really teach me, I mean, not just the daily work, but everything. The business side, the land management, the sustainable practices, all of it. He studied her face for a long moment. You sure about this? It's not glamorous work. It's early mornings and aching muscles and getting your hands dirty. It's dealing with drought and disease and markets that don't always make sense. It's a hard life, Olivia. I know, she said, and I want to learn it anyway. Uncle Raymond held out his hand. Then we start tomorrow with the real lessons. No more kid gloves. If you're serious about this, I'll teach you everything I know. Olivia shook his hand, feeling something click into place inside her chest. Purpose. That's what it was. For the first time in her life, she had found her purpose, and it had been waiting for her here all along. Hidden in the dirt and the dawn and the quiet wisdom of an old farmer who knew the difference between being rich and being wealthy. 9 months had passed since Olivia arrived at the farm. She was barely recognizable as the same person who'd stepped out of her parents' car, with 3 designer suitcases and a bad attitude. Her arms were lean and strong. Her skin was tanned from hours in the sun. She could fix a fence, deliver a calf, and calculate crop yields in her head. More importantly, she understood why all of it mattered. Uncle Raymond had kept his promise. Every evening after the day's work was done, they'd sit in his office and he'd teach her the business side of farming. Land assessment, water rights, commodity markets, conservation programs. He showed her his investment portfolio, explained how he'd leveraged his land holdings to create passive income streams that funded the conservation work he cared about. Most people think farmers are simple folks who just don't know any better, he told her one night. But the successful ones? They're some of the smartest business people you'll ever meet. They have to understand biology, chemistry, economics, meteorology, mechanics, and finance all at once. Your father thinks his corporate world is complex. He should try predicting profit margins when half his variables are controlled by the weather. Olivia had also started taking online courses in agricultural business and environmental science. With the spotty internet at the farm, she had to drive into town twice a week to use the library's Wi-Fi for her video lectures. But she didn't mind. For the first time in her academic life, she actually wanted to learn. Then one Tuesday morning, everything changed. 3 black SUVs rolled up the driveway. Much more intimidating than the previous visitors had been. Uncle Raymond was in the north field checking the irrigation system. Olivia was in the barn feeding the horses when she heard the vehicles arrive. She walked out to see 8 people emerging from the SUVs. Suits and briefcases. One woman who looked like she was in charge walked directly toward the farmhouse like she owned the place. Can I help you? Olivia called out, wiping her hands on her jeans. The woman turned, looking Olivia up and down with barely concealed dismissal. We're here to see Raymond Chen. Is he available? He's working. What's this about? That's between us and Mr. Chen, the woman said coolly. We're from Pinnacle Realty Group. We have a business proposition for him. Olivia felt her stomach tighten. He's not interested in selling. The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Everyone has a price, dear. We're prepared to make an offer he can't refuse. Before Olivia could respond, Uncle Raymond's truck came rumbling up the driveway. He parked and got out slowly, taking in the scene with those calm eyes that never seemed surprised by anything. Mr. Chen, the woman extended her hand. I'm Victoria Walsh, Senior Acquisition Director for Pinnacle Realty Group. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. I didn't agree to anything, Uncle Raymond said, not shaking her hand. You just showed up. Victoria's smile tightened. We tried calling, but we couldn't reach you. This opportunity is time-sensitive, So we decided to come in person. She gestured to her colleagues. We've brought our legal team, our financial analysts, and our development planners. We're very serious about this acquisition. And I'm very serious about saying no, Uncle Raymond replied. Just like I told the last company, and the one before that. Victoria's professional mask slipped slightly. Mr. Chen, you haven't even heard our offer. Don't need to. $50 million, she said, her voice sharp. $50 million for your entire property. That's more than double what Horizon Development offered you. We're talking about generational wealth. Money that could set up your entire family for life. Olivia's breath caught. $50 million. That was an incomprehensible amount of money. She looked at Uncle Raymond, waiting for his reaction. He crossed his arms. No. Victoria's professional composure cracked further. Mr. Chen, please be reasonable. We've done extensive research. Your property sits on significant limestone deposits. The location is ideal for a mixed-use development. We're talking luxury homes, commercial space, recreational facilities. This development would bring jobs and growth to the entire region. Jobs doing what? Uncle Raymond asked quietly. Serving expensive coffee to rich people. This region has jobs, farming jobs, real jobs that feed people and take care of the land. One of the men in suit stepped forward. Mr. Chen, with all due respect, small-scale farming is dying. Consolidation is inevitable. You can either profit from that change or be swept aside by it. We're offering you the chance to profit. And I'm telling you that some things matter more than profit, Uncle Raymond said, his voice hardening. Now get off my land. Victoria's expression turned cold. We've looked into your situation, Mr. Chen. You're 63 years old. No children. Your only heir is a niece who was sent here as some kind of punishment because she couldn't hack it in the real world. She glanced at Olivia with contempt. What happens to this land when you're gone? She'll sell it the first chance she gets. All your principles, your conservation efforts gone in a single transaction. Olivia felt rage flood through her. Before she could speak, Uncle Raymond held up his hand. You don't know my niece, he said quietly, dangerously. And you don't know me. I've got lawyers and conservation easements that will keep this land protected long after I'm gone. But more than that, I've got someone who actually understands what this place means. Something you and your shareholders will never understand. Victoria's jaw tightened. We're prepared to go to $60 million if you'll just sit down and discuss this rationally. I've given you my answer, Uncle Raymond said. Multiple times now. The next words out of my mouth will be calling the sheriff to remove you for trespassing. Your choice. The standoff lasted another moment before Victoria signaled to her team. They loaded back into the SUVs, but before getting in, Victoria turned one last time. You're a fool, Mr. Chen, and when time runs out for you, don't say we didn't try to help. The SUVs drove away in a cloud of dust. Uncle Raymond watched them go, his jaw clenched. Uncle Raymond, Olivia started, but he shook his head. Not now, kid. I need a minute. He walked toward the fields, his shoulders tense. Olivia stood there, shaken by what had just happened. Victoria's words kept echoing in her head. She'll sell it the first chance she gets. That evening, Olivia found Uncle Raymond sitting on the porch staring at the sunset. Can I sit? She asked. He nodded and she settled beside him. $60 million, Olivia said quietly. That's an insane amount of money, Uncle Raymond. It is, he agreed. And you didn't even hesitate. He looked at her. Did you want me to? Olivia thought about it. Really thought about it. No, she said finally. No, I didn't. Because if you'd said yes, everything you've taught me over the past 9 months would have been a lie. All that talk about legacy and responsibility and doing what matters, it would have just been words. Uncle Raymond's expression softened. That woman said something that's been bothering me. She said you'd sell this place first chance you got. She doesn't know me, Olivia said firmly. 3 months ago, she might have been right. But not now. Not after everything I've learned here. I need to tell you something, Uncle Raymond said slowly. Something I've been putting off because I wasn't sure if you were ready to hear it. Olivia felt her heart start to pound. What? I'm leaving all of this to you, he said, gesturing at the land around them. The farm, the conservation land, the investments, everything. It's all going to be yours when I'm gone. Olivia stared at him, unable to process what she was hearing. But that's worth more than you can imagine, he finished. Not just in money, though there's plenty of that. But in responsibility and trust. I'm giving you stewardship of something that's taken generations to build and protect. Why me? Olivia whispered. You could leave it to conservation groups, to trusts, to people who actually know what they're doing. Because you understand something that most people never learn, Uncle Raymond said. You understand that wealth isn't about how much you have. It's about what you do with what you've been given. You came here spoiled and lost, and you chose to become someone different, someone worthy of this responsibility. Tears were streaming down Olivia's face now. What if I mess it up? What if I make the wrong decisions? Then you'll learn from them, same as I did, he said gently. I'm not expecting perfection, Olivia. I'm expecting someone who cares about more than just themselves. And you've proven over these past months that you're that person. He pulled an envelope from his pocket. This is a copy of my will. I've already filed it with my lawyer. Everything's legal and binding. But I wanted you to know now, while I'm still here to teach you, to guide you, to help you understand the weight of what you'll inherit. Olivia took the envelope with shaking hands. Does my dad know? Not yet. I'll tell him when the time is right. But I wanted you to know first. He stood up, placing a hand on her shoulder. That woman today said you were sent here as punishment. She was wrong. You were sent here to find yourself. And look at that. You did. After he went inside, Olivia sat alone on the porch holding the envelope. The sun had set completely now and the stars were coming out. She thought about the girl who'd arrived here 9 months ago, angry and resentful, thinking her life was over. That girl was gone. In her place was someone who understood what it meant to work for something bigger than yourself. Someone who could look at 800 acres and see not just dollar signs, but legacy and responsibility and purpose. Someone who could turn down $60 million without a second thought, because some things were worth more than money. Olivia opened the envelope and began to read, ready to accept the weight of the future that was now hers to carry. 2 years had passed since that conversation on the porch. 2 years that changed everything. Olivia's mandatory year at the farm had ended long ago, but she'd never left. Instead, she'd enrolled in online courses for sustainable agriculture and land management. Studying late into the night after full days of farm work, she'd helped Uncle Raymond expand the conservation sections of the property and had even started her own project, a small organic cooperative that brought together farmers from across the county to share resources and knowledge. The old farmhouse had been carefully renovated, keeping its character but making it more functional. Uncle Raymond had finally agreed to fix the sagging porch and update the plumbing, though he'd drawn the line at getting rid of his ancient truck. Some things, he insisted, didn't need changing. Then one morning in early spring, Uncle Raymond didn't come down for breakfast. Olivia found him in his bed, peaceful, a slight smile on his weathered face. The doctor said it was his heart. He'd gone quietly in his sleep, no pain, no struggle, the way he would have wanted to go. The funeral brought out half the county. Farmers in their Sunday best, local business owners, environmental activists, and even some representatives from the conservation groups he'd worked with over the years. Olivia's parents came too, standing awkwardly among people who represented a world they'd never understood. Her father looked older than she remembered, grayer, tired. I'm sorry for your loss, he said stiffly after the service. I know you two had become close. He taught me everything, Olivia said, her voice thick with grief. Everything that actually mattered. Her mother touched her arm gently. What will you do now? Will you come home? Olivia looked at her mother's concerned face and realized they still didn't understand. Mom, I am home. This is my home now. But surely you're not planning to run the farm by yourself, her father said. You should sell it, Olivia. Take the money and start fresh. You could go back to school properly, get a real degree, build a real career. I have a career, Olivia replied quietly, and Uncle Raymond left me more than just a farm. He left me a responsibility. Her father's expression hardened. He left you the property? All of it? Everything. The land, the investments, all of it. She watched the emotions flicker across her father's face. Shock, hurt, anger. That land should have stayed in the main family line. I'm his brother, his only sibling. And I'm his only heir who wanted to learn what he had to teach, Olivia said, not unkindly. He knew you'd just sell it to the first developer who made an offer. And he spent his whole life protecting this place from exactly that. Her father opened his mouth to argue, but her mother put a hand on his arm. Let's not do this here, she murmured. Not today. They left shortly after, and Olivia stood alone in the cemetery looking at the fresh grave. I won't let you down, she whispered. I promise. The next few months were the hardest of Olivia's life. Learning to run everything alone, making decisions without Uncle Raymond's guidance, dealing with the legal complexities of the inheritance. There were moments when she doubted herself, when the weight of responsibility felt crushing. But then she'd walk through the fields at sunrise, or see the native prairie grasses swaying in the conservation sections, or get an email from one of the cooperative farmers thanking her for her help, and she'd remember why it mattered. One afternoon, about 6 months after Uncle Raymond's death, Olivia was in the office reviewing the quarterly financial reports when she heard vehicles approaching. Her heart sank. She recognized those black SUVs. Victoria Walsh stepped out, flanked by lawyers and associates just like before. But this time, Olivia walked out to meet them with her shoulders back and her head high. "Ms. Chen," Victoria said, and there was something almost sympathetic in her tone. "I'm sorry for your loss. Your uncle was a stubborn man, but I respected his conviction. If you're here to make another offer, you can turn around right now," Olivia said. Victoria held up her hands. "We're not here for that." "Not exactly." She gestured to one of her associates, who handed her a folder. "We've been watching what you've done with the cooperative, the Sustainable Farming Initiative, the educational programs you've started for young farmers. It's impressive work." Olivia crossed her arms, suspicious. "What's your point?" "My point is that we'd like to propose a partnership," Victoria said. "Not buy your land. Partner with you. We want to develop a sustainable agritourism destination on a small section of your property. Educational tours, farm-to-table experiences, conservation education. You'd maintain ownership and control. We'd provide funding and expertise." Olivia studied the woman's face, looking for the angle. "Why?" "Because the market is changing," Victoria admitted. "People want authenticity. They want to connect with where their food comes from. And frankly, your uncle was right about some things. Developments like we were planning, they're becoming obsolete. The future is in sustainable tourism and educational experiences." "How much land are we talking about?" Olivia asked. 50 acres. Less than 6% of your total property. The rest would remain as you've been managing it." Olivia thought about it. 50 acres for an educational center could actually further the mission Uncle Raymond had started. It could bring resources to expand the conservation work. It could create jobs for the local community without destroying what made this place special. "I'll need to see detailed plans," she said finally. "And I'll need approval rights on everything. This is my land, my vision. You're just providing support." Victoria smiled, and this time it seemed genuine. "If those terms are acceptable, your uncle would be proud of how you're handling this." "Don't presume to know what my uncle would think," Olivia said sharply. "But I think he'd appreciate that I'm not making decisions based on fear or greed. I'm making them based on what's best for the land and the community." The partnership moved forward slowly, carefully. Olivia brought in environmental consultants, community representatives, and legal advisors. Every step was deliberate. Every decision was weighed against Uncle Raymond's principles. A year later, the Chen Family Agricultural Heritage Center opened its doors. 50 acres transformed into an educational destination that taught visitors about sustainable farming, land conservation, and the importance of environmental stewardship. It employed 30 local people. It brought thousands of visitors who learned where their food came from and why protecting farmland mattered. And Olivia preserved the rest of the 800 acres exactly as Uncle Raymond had envisioned. The conservation lands remained untouched. The working farm continued using sustainable practices. The cooperative grew to include over 40 local farmers. On the 2-year anniversary of Uncle Raymond's death, Olivia stood at his grave with flowers in her hand. She'd become a successful agricultural entrepreneur, a respected voice in sustainable farming circles, and a landowner worth more than she'd ever dreamed. But more importantly, she'd become someone who understood what true wealth meant. Her phone buzzed with a message from her mother. "Your father and I would like to visit the center. We'd like to see what you've built. We're proud of you." Olivia smiled through her tears. It had taken time, but her parents were finally starting to understand. She wasn't their failure. She was exactly who she was meant to be. "I did it," she said to the gravestone. "I kept your promise. I protected the land. I built something that matters. And I finally figured out what you were trying to teach me all along." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of fresh earth and growing things. In the distance, a group of schoolchildren on a tour laughed as they learned about composting. The farm was alive with purpose and meaning. Olivia had been sent here as punishment, broken and lost, thinking her life was over. Instead, she'd found her fortune, not in the money, though there was plenty of that now, but in the purpose she'd discovered, the legacy she was building, and the knowledge that she was doing something that mattered. She'd learned that true wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts or property values. It was measured in the impact you made, the land you protected, the community you served, and the legacy you left behind. Uncle Raymond had given her all of that. He'd given her a fortune beyond measure, wrapped up in 800 acres of responsibility, purpose, and love, and she would spend the rest of her life proving herself worthy of that gift. As Olivia walked back toward the farmhouse, the sun setting behind her, she thought about the girl who'd arrived here years ago with designer luggage and a bad attitude. That girl had died here in the best possible way, and in her place had grown someone strong, capable, and content. Someone who knew that being sent away as punishment had actually been the greatest blessing of her life. Someone who'd found her true fortune in the last place she'd ever expected to look.